Welcome to another edition of Unplugged as we tick towards round 19, our 18th game of the season, of course, as we come off a very frustrating Saturday afternoon, one of the most frustrating afternoons we've had in a while. We lost a lot of games last year in similar circumstances, but we were probably ahead of the game at the times we lost them. We were at a stage here where we obviously needed a result, and once again, it was a team that seems to hurt us every time we play them, and as a result, I hate them passionately. In Port Adelaide, they've destroyed many a season, although we only have ourselves to blame. We had a lot of players out with injury, but they had a lot of the same player out with injury, and generally when you lose all of one particular area of the ground, it leaves you quite vulnerable, but look, credit to them, they fought it out. But in the last quarter, when we got ourselves back in front, we made some unbelievable mistakes. We turned the ball over 4 times in a minute coming out of defence when we were a point in front. And then countless times going forward, the Dan Butler check side on the run after he took 4 bounces and went for a millionaire pass when he had options everywhere. And obviously Marshall missing that set shot from 35 metres out directly in front in the last quarter that would have given us a hope. To top things off, somehow we lose a player to a Tier 1 COVID exposure site, and somehow that is the most important player on our list. That's just the way it seems to go for us at the moment. But a 13-point loss to Port Adelaide. There were so many chances to win that game, and the loss is probably going to prove very, very costly. We said last week if we won the game, we'd be in the 8. We would have been. We're not, and we may not get another look at it. We've still got a chance, but we've got to try to find a way to produce a miracle this week. H, your summation, first of all, of that one hurt quite a bit given what was on the line and the chances that presented themselves.
You summed it up pretty well there. It's so many opportunities that are taken, didn't take them. That's as simple as it is. It was there for us to win, but they just didn't want it enough. That's exactly what it felt like watching it. Going, if you're desperate to win the game, you hit those passes, you get kick that goal. It just didn't happen, and I don't know whether it was we got to the point like we looked a little bit sluggish at points, so I don't know whether they'll feel a bit tired here or what, but yeah, it just felt like it fell away right towards the end there when it was there for the taking, and um, but at the same time you see Brad Hill turn over those 2 kicks from the back line, but at the same time we got Leo Connolly as a 4th game player hitting a target that you should not hit. That kick across the top of the 50 was one of the best kicks you'll ever see, and on the opposite foot. That was an unbelievable pass. So you sort of think, well, if that's what he's doing at that stage of the game, your senior players should be standing up as well, and that's pretty much what killed us.
Yeah, my heart was in, and Nick, just on that point that he made, I remember when Connolly took possession of that ball and turned inboard, my sort of heart sunk thinking, no, you don't do that. You don't kick it across goal on your opposite foot in the corridor. And he laces out the target beautifully, and I'm thinking, oh, what a kick that is. And then the handball goes to Hill, who kicks it straight to Dixon, who's a minute away. So all of the emotions with, why is he kicking it there? What a kick. What the hell just happened? All in the space of about 10 seconds, and we just never looked like it. That was the momentum sapper. And, yeah, Brad Hill, I mean, he was probably best on ground before that, but those 2 lazy kicks just turned the game on its head.
You both hit the nail on the head there, and it comes down to missed opportunities. And I think one of the things that we've spoken about a number of times throughout the year is the ability to take the game on and kind of play with no fear. You have play like you have nothing to lose, and just run and attack and play football. And you get these kids in, and whether it's Ryan Burns cracking in the middle or Jack Bytel, effort after effort after effort, or Leo Connolly doing what he did in that moment. Kind of playing with no fear and take the game on and just attack the contest. That's what these kids are doing. And I'm really hesitant to have a crack at Brad Hill, but those 2 moments are really key moments in the game. But you're right, he was pretty much best on ground to that point. His first half was unbelievable, as he has been in first halves over the last 6 weeks. Was vital and probably our most important player on the field in the way that he controlled possession, controlled the direction of the game, controlled how we attacked, how we defended, marshaled the defence and marshaled the forward line in terms of, telling people where to run, where to lead into space, how to defend, where to line up, all that sort of thing. It was a real leader's game from Brad Hill up to that point, and obviously those two moments were really disappointing. But that play in particular, you see Leo Connolly turn inside and go onto his opposite foot, take the game on, and then Brad Hill kind of stops and stutters, and then a little dinky kick when really you should be running your full 15 metres and going long and trying to hit up your key forwards in that moment, to kind of stop and stutter and step inside and try this little, nothing kick was kind of really disappointing from a player of Hill's calibre and his class in that moment. We really needed him to do what he does best, which is run and carry and go long. But I mean, like we said, this game was all about missed opportunities, and you kick 0-7 or 0-8 from set shots, and all of them pretty easy, kickable shots. Our disposal efficiency inside 50, not just kicking for goal, but that efficiency inside 50, we went under 40% for the game, and that's not sustainable. You can't win games of footy. And we spoke about it last week. If ever there was a time to come up against Port Adelaide, this was it. You finally get a home game in Melbourne. They're missing a host of players. We've got some good ins and a lot of players that are kind of vital to our structure are in and hitting their straps and hitting their stride. And that was such a winnable game. That was about as winnable a game as we've had against Port Adelaide in the last decade, taking out the fact that we beat them in Adelaide last year. I don't think anyone thought that it was a particularly winnable game at that stage going into it. This was about as winnable a game against Port as we're ever probably going to get, given they're kind of our nemesis in that regard. And you're right, I just hate them with a passion because they always seem to find a way to beat us when they shouldn't. And they did it again. And this time was really, we beat ourselves. And it wasn't even them beating us, we beat ourselves.
Yeah, and it was just, I guess, a couple on that, just on the Connolly kick. Without being at the ground, which none of us were, so we can't see what was happening further afield. But my gut feel is that kicks like that open the ground up completely, because Port Adelaide don't expect you to kick the ball there. So you're pinned up against the boundary line. Yes, they want you to kick it into the corridor, but they don't expect you to. So they'll be running boundary side. If you lace one out into the corridor and hit a target, you should have players everywhere. So I imagine Brad Hill probably had players everywhere. He just had to get it over the top of Dixon, and we would have had runners through the middle of the ground. He's kicked it straight into the man on the mark. And obviously that's one moment. The second one where he turned it over, and then Port Adelaide missed that shot as well. And then Webster, who was also very good, got a 1-2 and kicked it straight back to Boak, I think. And then obviously going forward late in the game when Butler took all of those bounces and could have fed Hill, it would have run into an open goal, could have kicked it to King, who was one out in the goal square. And I don't know how, after taking two bounces and you're 40 metres in the clear, you kick a check side on the run 45 metres into the middle of the ground. And he did it. I know we got a goal out of it just before three-quarter time, but the one where he handballed it straight over his head, like a millionaire sort of stuff like that. So, I mean, Butler was a terrific recruit for us last year, and we have no players available this week, but he 100% should have been dropped for those two things. You can't be doing that in close games, but we just don't have anyone available. If Jack Higgins was fit, I would have hoped that they would have picked him and dropped Butler for that. But he's now got to make up for it, because that's party time bullshit, basically. You can't be 100%. Doing that sort of stuff in games.
100%. And before I go to Butler, just one more thing on that Connolly moment. You're spot on about that type of kick opening the game up, because you can see even from the footage, and yes, we don't have kind of the wide-angled view of it, but you can see the reason that kick has so much space to be able to hit the target in the middle of the defense is because no one expected him to A, turn back inside, and B, take that kick. You can see the two defenders either side of the mark were both peeling off in the opposite direction. So one was coming back towards goal to kind of close the space on the odd chance that Connolly turned back inside and got behind the defender to switch and go across goal. He was trying to close down that space, and the other defender was peeling out towards the boundary to try and cover the space for Connolly going long down the line. So that automatically meant that they was, as soon as Connolly went inboard, they were scrambling to get back, and there was space for Hill to kind of run and carry. And that, I think that was the most disappointing thing. But you're spot on about Butler. I mean, and that's not the first time this year either. It's kind of been He's been doing it week after week, and you kind of get the feeling that had the coaching team and the selection committee made that statement maybe earlier in the year, that maybe this stuff wouldn't be happening now. But I mean, that type of Hollywood stuff, when you're fighting for a final spot, and in reality, we shouldn't even be fighting for a final spot. But the fact that we are, you can't be doing that stuff. And Butler probably, in my eyes, probably should have been dropped 10 weeks ago. And for some reason has managed to keep his spot. I don't know if it's because of injuries or personnel or anything else, but he shouldn't be in the team right now. And it's pretty rare for me to be saying that someone doesn't deserve to be in the team. I don't often rag on a guy to that extent, but there is no way that Dan Butler should be in the senior team right now. It's just as simple as that.
Just thinking back to last season, I think he finished around about 50 in our votes or so, around about that point.
And I reckon he finished third in the club BNF, didn't he?
Yeah, I think we got him up to about 50 in ours last year. I couldn't find the leaderboard from last year, but we haven't polled one vote for him this year. He's been missing. It just hasn't been any of that game-winning moves or kicking a bit of a bag for us, I think the killer instinct up forward just hasn't been there this year.
He had 10 minutes. He had 10 minutes in the third quarter against West Coast. That was it. In that first game where he sort of helped turn it, but that's all he's done really.
One of the things that allowed him
it was actually third in our one last year. So there we go.
The thing that allowed him to be able to show off that offensive talent and the attacking talent was his defensive energy in the forward half. I mean, he was chasing and tackling and harassing and second and third and fourth and fifth efforts, time after time. And we haven't seen any of that. And so it kind of seems like he's just been hanging on the outside, waiting for the cheap handball over the top that just isn't coming because no one had been putting in that effort. And over the last 6 weeks, especially, as we've seen that, kind of turn and the squad, I think as a whole, has been putting in that effort. And we've been seeing that result. Butler's kind of the one that hasn't kind of come along for that ride and has just, again, been hanging out the back for that cheap, easy handball over the top. He can be such a good player. He's so damaging when he's on and firing and kind of switched on, and he just hasn't been. And I feel like if he just focused on doing the easy things, the simple things, chase and tackle and put pressure, the other stuff will come. And he's too talented to not be involved in the play on the other side of the ball. But when he's putting in that effort and the energy, on the defensive end, the offensive stuff will come. But he's just not doing it. He hasn't done it all year. And like I said, over the last month or 6 weeks, as the rest of the squad's been putting in those hours and putting in the effort, he just hasn't come along for the ride. And I'm not sure what's going on in his head at the moment.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And look, I know we have a lot of positive awards on our podcast. Maybe, I don't know, there's room for a negative award for a player every week that needs to lift. I don't know, what do you call it, a Shannon Noel award or something for something like that, just someone who needs a lift. But Butler would certainly get that. And we've had a lot of guys that have come along for the ride. I mean, we lost Mackenzie early, who's been good for us in recent weeks, and he goes out. Highmore breaks his hand in that game as well. And then obviously Marshall, who actually escaped a Tier 1 exposure side at the rugby, went to the precinct for a beer whilst he was waiting for a lift, and then got caught up in the Tier 1 after that. So we'll talk about that shortly. But on Port Adelaide, I sort of looked it up during the week. So we won the first 5 games we played against Port Adelaide. Our record head-to-head is 11-22. So that means we've gone 6-22 since we won the first 5. So they've won 22 of the last 28 against us. And there's so many, if you look historically at painful losses. So in 2006, they beat us, or 2004, they beat us in a prelim by a kick. Obviously, that's the worst of them. A game we dominated, mind you. In 2006, they beat us by 4 points at Football Park. We ended up missing top 4 on percentage, so they cost us a double chance and any realistic hope. In 2012, they beat us in the opening game of the season by 4 points, then finished second last. We missed the 8 on percentage that year. The following year, they beat us at Marvel by 3 points when we were 50 points down and hit the front, and they kicked the goal in the last minute and beat us. The last time we played them at Marvel. In 2016, we were 5 goals up in the third quarter, and they came back and beat us at home. 2017, they beat us with 8 seconds to go via Robbie Gray. And now this year, they probably ended our season again. So it's credit to them for obviously doing that to us. But, geez, they've been a pain in the arse over the years, Port Adelaide.
And they destroy good songs. So, yeah, we'll keep them in.
That's
keep
almost
it on the list. And
that's almost the most disappointing thing because it's one of my favourite songs, but I can't stand it when it comes on at the footy. I just can't stand it.
They open themselves up a bit for that. Yeah.
The thing about Port, right, and you're right, they've been that team over the last decade. They've been that team, and they really grind my gears in that regard. But this game felt different because we should have won, and like I said earlier, we kind of beat ourselves. They didn't beat us this time. We kind of won or broke even in all the key metrics. But it's that forward line and that forward half dysfunction that again killed us, and it's been the same thing week after week this season. This is not a new concept for us, right? Like we've spoken about it a number of times, but you know, at some time over the last kind of 6 weeks, we've been able to overcome it, and just through sheer will and through effort and wave after wave of attack and really solid defense as the defense has been solid and stout all year. Like, I've got no concerns about our defense and kind of the back six or back eight, but the midfield's kind of come to the party and done their thing over the last 4 or 6 weeks. But the forward line, week after week, just looks completely broken and has all year. And a team that goes 40% and under for efficiency inside 50, a team that goes 0-7, 0-8, set shots at goal and has had the inaccuracy issues that we've had all year. What can we do to fix that? Because this is not a new issue, right? But it's essentially what cost us the game this week, and it has cost us a game on a number of occasions. It cost us the Geelong game. It cost us the Sydney game. This is not a new issue, but it kind of highlighted our defence was on point, our midfield was on point, but it was our forward line again that kind of lacked and broke down and kind of, bucked the system. What can we do? And is there something that we can do in the short term to fix that?
Which means it's cost us our season effectively.
100%.
Well, I mean, it's not over yet, but realistically. But it's a tough one because for some reason we kicked so well at the MCG out in the elements. We kick well in Queensland. We generally kick all right in Adelaide. But for some reason at Marvel, where there is no inhibitors, no wind, no rain, no slippery footy, so we kicked 0-7 and one out in the full and 2 others that didn't score. The Marshall missed a few of the misses in the first quarter as well. It's bewildering. I mean, on the weekend it was a bit different. Max King got beaten by Mackenzie. Membry, unfortunately with Tim, who's had a very good year, when he's off, he's quite off for some reason. He can't hold marks. His impact on the game drops right away. Obviously Butler's out of form. We haven't got Loney in the side. We haven't got Higgins available. So yeah, unfortunately for us, it's that set shot kicking. I mean, Rowan Marshall missed 2 from 30 metres out. Dunstan hit the post. Dean Kent missed 1 from 30. Yeah, I can't for the life of me grasp why we kick so poorly for goal at our home venue, which has perfect conditions for football, but we kick so well everywhere else.
I was almost going to say, I wish we had moved to Metricon for the week. So, I mean, we kicked 8-13. I mean, what do we kick? Maybe if we kick 13-8, then it's a completely different game. But just it's absolutely baffling that how badly we kick under the roof. Is there does something happen when there's no fans there or something? That is there winds that come through those gates at the end of the ground or something that's hard to kick into or something, or it just doesn't make any sense. The players still allowing for the wind when they're kicking down at Moorabbin that it's not there.
It becomes contagious too, because sometimes I don't know about you, but when Marshall was lining up for that goal, I'm like, no way, it's just not happening.
It just didn't feel right.
Because that's why I'm really hesitant to kind of blame guys like Brad Hill and even Dan Butler for the loss, because even though they were in kind of really key, important moments, in clutch moments, we had opportunities earlier to kind of not ice the game, but to get further ahead and to really make our presence felt. And the two Marshall shots, I mean, they were both really kickable shots. And for a guy of his talent, he's a really good kick. He's a really talented, skillful player, right? He's a good set shot for goal. His technique and his routine is almost textbook. But for some reason, in those moments, he just really struggled. And same with guys like Dean Kent, also really good technique, really good skill level. At Melbourne, he was a really reliable set shot for goal. In his early days at St Kilda, when he first moved over, I know he had a bit of the yips, but he kind of, before his last injury last year, he'd kind of figured that out and was able to kind of put that behind him. And these guys are actually really good technicians in terms of the way that they kick the ball. And for some reason, when it comes to those moments, in game at Marvel, it seems like they just drop their bundle. And Rowan Marshall is kind of one of the biggest culprits of that, because he's been doing it all year in kind of key moments. He's had games where he's kicked 1-2 or 2-3, and in some of those games where he kicks one more goal, that can be the difference. And it was really important this week that we took our opportunities, and clearly, 07, 08 from set shots, it's not sustainable. You can't win games of footy doing that.
We also probably
do you find yourself more confident when Max is in the pocket compared to about straight in front as well? He absolutely no problem kicking from the pocket, but it's pretty much straight in front, and
he loves Metricon, Max. Yeah, loves Metricon.
Yeah.
I shudder to think what his numbers would be at Marvel compared to other venues this year. I mean, I can't remember him kicking one at Marvel, to be honest.
Kicked a couple against West Coast and Richmond earlier.
He kicked 5 against West Coast,
but he kicked a lot of kicked a lot of points in that game too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And against Hawthorn, he kicked 2 goals, 4. Obviously, against Geelong, he had that horror night in front of goal. The only goal he kicked on the weekend was off the ground. But, yeah, it was odd. I mean, we probably should have been 5 goals up at quarter time on the balance of the game. Like, we had so many chances in the first quarter. We dropped marks, missed free kicks. Dak Jones got a free kick holding the ball 30 metres out in the pocket, passed it back to 50, and then Dunstan kicked it out in the full. So I'm like, well, just thought Jones could have taken a step out and snapped that through. I don't know. I mean, I know he's not the most skillful player, but just step around and snap that. I don't know. But
having the belief, or having, like we talked about before, having that mentality of attacking the game and take your opportunity and that sort of stuff, rather than pass the buck and give it to someone else to fuck up. I don't know. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And guys like that, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking in my head, I'm like, how is Dunstan from 51 metres out, with all due respect, a better option than that? I mean,
that's right, but you can't.
It's not Nick D'Alsano on 50, to be honest.
But that's the thing, and that's one of the things, like, we've spoken a number of times this season about the way that we use Luke Dunstan. That's not his fault.
No, that's right.
One of the things that we're saying is, guys, take the initiative and do what you got to do. And Luke Dunstan, to his credit, does that every week.
Correct.
He does what he needs to do. And he's not the greatest technician at kicking the ball. We know that. And he shouldn't be used in that regard. But, to his credit, you're kicking the ball and he goes, I'm going to take this shot. I'm going to do what I need to do. And whether he misses or kicks it doesn't matter, because he's kind of done that, and he's taking the game on. He's taking that initiative. And it's moments like that where you go, Zach, seriously, just like you said, take a step around, even just line up and take it, drop punt. It might be low percentage, but at least you're taking the game on and attacking this contest.
And I reckon he made a 4 out of 10 shot, a 2 out of 10 shot. It just made it even harder again. I know it was a bit straighter, and just on the Port Adelaide record before we do the vote. So to put this in perspective, so Port Adelaide, our record against Port since we won the first 5 is 6-22. I've just had a look. Our record against Hawthorn in that time, who have won 3 flags, is 14-12. So we have a positive win-loss record against them. And our record against Richmond is 19-11. So we've nearly doubled the win tally against Richmond, who have won 3 flags. We're ahead of the ledger against Hawthorn, who have won 3 flags. And we're 6-22 against Port Adelaide, who have only made the finals about 7 times in that period. So, yeah, it's a very definition of a bogey side. But Nick,
it speaks to just before we get into the votes, it kind of speaks to that that whole mental aspect of footy. Like St Kilda in the last decade have not been a good team, but we turn up against good teams and we turn up and we play well. And when you put in that effort and that energy, you get good results. And Port Adelaide, on the flip side, kind of have that reputation of being the downhill skier, the easy handball front runner type team, and they'll beat the bad teams. But as soon as they come up against a good team, they kind of drop the bundle, and they seem to beat up on us. Whereas we come to good teams, Richmond, Hawthorn, these teams that are kind of competitive year after year after year, and we turn up and we play really well.
Yeah, it is frustrating, but we'll have to wait at least 12 months perhaps to get another crack at them. But the votes, Nick, our 3, 2 and 1, we should probably just change the name of these votes to the Steel 2 and 1. I'll let you kick it off first if you want.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the Jack Steele MVP award this year. I guess as it was last year as well. So it probably should just be the annual Jack Steele MVP. But look, tough one, because there were a couple of really good players and all of them kind of had moments where they did really dumb things, and it was hard to kind of give them votes after that. But honourable mentions to Brad Hill, because I thought, like we said earlier, that he was probably best on ground up to halftime. And if it wasn't for those 2 incredibly dumb mistakes late in the game, we probably win that game, and he probably gets 2 votes, if not 3. So honourable mention, Brad Hill. Luke Dunstan, I thought, did his job again. Jimmy Webster has been very, very good since he's come back into the team. And was close to votes. Jack Sinclair, again, was very close to votes in my eyes. But 1 vote goes to Brad Crouch, 36 touches, 11 clearances, 9 tackles. Absolute beast inside and just continues week after week to impress. I was wary on him earlier in the year. Didn't think that he was living up to expectation or price tag or whatever you want to call it. But, since about round 6, he's done everything asked of him, and he hasn't played a bad game. 2 votes, Rowan Marshall. I thought he was almost the most influential player on the ground, and it was that the two shots at goal that he missed. He kicked 2 goals too. If not for those 2 points, which were again very kickable shots at goal, he kicks 4 straight. He's probably best on ground. Probably gets the 3 votes, but 19 disposals, 16 hitouts as the secondary ruckman, 7 score involvements, 5 tackles, and 2 goals too. He gets my 2 votes, and Jack Steele. I'm not sure we even need to discuss that, but 37 touches, 7 tackles, 7 intercepts, 6 score involvements, 5 inside 50s, 4 clearances and a goal. He's just the ultimate player. And even after a top 3 in the best and fairest, even after top 3 in the Brownlow, even after best and fairest, we all know that he's elite. He probably doesn't get the recognition or the credit that he deserves around the competition. And I'm really, really interested to see how he goes on Brownlow night, because he's a smoky.
Definitely. H?
And yeah, actually, very, very similar, actually. Again, a couple of moments probably changed how the vote sat in the end there. As Nick was saying, if Hill had hit those 2 passes towards the end there, he gets into the votes. But I went 1 to Marshall. And as we're saying, if he'd kicked that goal towards the end there, he probably moves up to the 2 for me there. That's just kept him back just a little bit. So it's just those sort of things that stick to you, and you go, oh, if he just kicked that, I would have pushed him up the order there. So I gave him the 1, gave 2 to Brad Crouch. That was a great game. As you're saying, since round 6 or whatever it was, his 6th game, he's taken off. He's finding the ball. He's given Steele the support that he needs. He's working with Dunstan as well. The mix in there is working very well. We throw Gresham back into there at some stages next year and that sort of thing. That's just going to add another dynamic to it, and they'll improve even further with him in there too. So it's, as I say, 36 touches and 11 clearances. That was the big thing of the day. The level pegging with Ollie Wines, both 36 touches, both 11 clearances. That if Wines is getting best on ground, Crouch can't be far away. Looking at that, that's the best way to look at it. So, and yeah, clearly MVP there going on there, Jack. So, nothing else to say to it.
Yeah, I was similar in the votes in that I thought we had a lot of guys that played pretty well, but nearly every one of them just had a couple of little mistakes. So it's just depended on how you wanted to punish them, except Jack Steele, who didn't really have many of those down moments. But I gave apology. I actually just squeezed Brad Crouch out of my votes. I thought he was pretty good, but I just thought, and I think he's had a really good year. I just thought he wasn't quite as damaging with his disposals. He missed a couple of running opportunities forward with the ball, but still played quite well. Brad Hill, I agree, would have been close to best on ground, but it's just a couple of mistakes late. I thought Jack Sinclair, he only had 4 touches in the first half, but was probably our best player in the second half, and that almost got him in. Some of our defenders, similar. Even Ryder in the ruck was pretty competent, but I gave 1 vote to Jimmy Webster. Even he turned one ball over coming out of defence. He slipped over going through the middle of the ground at one point, but I think used the ball really well. Apart from that, kicked a nice long-range goal. Good to see him where he is at the moment. I thought he was our best defender on the day. I gave 2 votes to Rowan Marshall. Likewise, he missed those shots, which were pivotal to the result, but he was massive before that, sort of dragged us back into the game a little bit after half-time, kicked 2 big goals in general play. So hard to knock him overall for that, and that was the best game he's played in a while. And look, Jack Steele was streets ahead, unfortunately, for mine. So 1 to Webster, 2 to Marshall, and 3 to Steele.
One of the things, I think we're probably, like any footy fan, you're probably a victim of the moment. And I think at the start of this year, or at the end of last year, we all kind of wondered whether Jimmy Webster had a future in, at least at our footy club. I mean, we talked about him being maybe, trade bait or free agent or whatever, and whether other clubs might be interested in Jimmy Webster at some level, because you had guys, you obviously got Jaron Geary, who's captain. You got Ben Patton, who's pretty close to the number 1 lockdown small defender in the competition after last year. You've got Cal Wilkie. You've got, Tom Highmore coming through, and there's a few other guys that all play kind of similar roles. Jack Sinclair off halfback last year was pretty good in the second half. So I think we all kind of wondered whether Jimmy Webster has a place at the St Kilda Footy Club. But these last kind of 10 weeks, he's clearly got a role to play, and he hasn't. Again, a bit like Brad Crouch, hasn't really played a bad game. He's not mentioned as much as some of the other guys, and we talk a little bit more about guys like Ben Long in moments when he's been forward, and Dan McKenzie, because of some, I guess, kind of highlighted moments. When you're in the forward half, you get highlighted a little bit more. But Jimmy Webster's kind of snuck under the radar. I guess the question is, when we get some of these guys back next year, how do we see Jimmy Webster, and how do we view his spot? Because I think he's almost a really important part. You almost have to pick him on his current form.
Yeah, you do. That's right. I mean, obviously Patton, Geary, you wonder what role he plays. He could probably do a forward type role. It appears that Ben Long will play forward. So, then you just sort of come down to Highmore, Patton, Caulfield at his best potentially, who's playing this week. Sort of how they massage all of that in together will be really fascinating. But look, Webster's a point of difference. He's a good height. He's a long penetrating, accurate kick of the footy. I like that he's in there now. And as you say, it's pretty hard to keep him out. It almost feels comfortable that that's where he's supposed to be for mine.
Yeah, I just think like he has to be in that. He gives us something a bit different because he's tough and hard at the ball, but he also has that long penetrating kick, like you said, and he kind of fits perfectly on that, whether it's that left back pocket or left halfback flank, whatever you want to do with him. He kind of has that role, and he gives us something different to the other guys that we mentioned. In even Caulfield, who's more of that running tall halfback kind of wingman, whatever you want to call it, flanker. He gives us something different, and we don't have pretty much anyone else like Jimmy Webster.
Yeah, I agree.
Robertson was probably closer to him than anyone. So it's you look at you've lost him this year, and then you haven't had Jimmy for the majority of the year. So that player had been missing until he got back. So they had a few trying to do it, I guess, but otherwise, that's been a hole that's been there the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comparison. I guess the left-footed version of Dylan Robertson. We'll take a look at the West Coast game shortly, but a good opportunity. We'll just sort of change the pace a little bit on this week's episode. We speak to a lot of former St Kilda greats, but On this occasion, we got to speak to somebody who was an Australian Olympic champion, and that is Michael Klim.
Sweden in 1, Brazil in 2, Germany in 3, the USA in 4, Irvin, Walker, Lizak, Gary Hall Jr., Australia in 5, Italy 6, Russia in 7, France in 8. And Michael Klim is going out hard. Michael Klim, the early leader, is out by about half a body length already. But look at Michael Klim powering down to the wall. Chris Feidler in next for the Australians. Check that time, 48.18.
Michael Klim has just broken the world record.
Around they go for the final 50. Crawler's in front. What can the champ muster? A gold medalist earlier tonight. Now he's digging deep. The crowd is roaring. Their hero is coming on. Will it be a fairy tale? Thorpe is coming out after Hall. They're matching strokes now. Thorpe on terms with Hall. They've got about 15 metres to swim. Thorpe is overhauling him. Hall and Thorpe. Thorpe's in front. Thorpe and Hall. Thorpe goes in. Australia win.
New world record! The Australians have just broken the American stranglehold on this race.
Well, the next special guest this week, it's rather timely as the Olympic Games at the time of this conversation were a day out from the opening ceremony. Some aspects of the Games have already begun with some of the team competitions such as the football and the baseball and things like that, but officially does kick off after the opening ceremony tomorrow night. A passionate St Kilda supporter, but also a 6-time Olympic medalist, including 2 gold, and an 11-time Commonwealth Games medalist, including 5 gold across the journey. And won a stack of medals at Pan-Pacific and World Championship levels as well. I speak of Michael Klim, and Michael, thanks for jumping on with us.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's definitely a pretty exciting time in sport, and obviously, the Saints are doing okay this year, but it's always roller coaster following them. But I'm always. This has been a very interesting lead up to these Olympics, so really looking forward to the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, this year's been a classic example of a roller coaster for them. When a lot of people look at the famous footage from the 2010 grand final of Eric Banner going ballistic in the last quarter, they may notice that they look down the camera that you're in the front there as well. There seem to be a lot of the famous Saints fans in that area. Can you sort of tell us where it started for you? Where did the love of the Saints begin?
Oh, look, I arrived in Australia when I was 11 in 1989, and we moved into Moorabbin, just off South Road, and I was this kind of chubby Polish kid, had no idea really what AFL was. I started watching, these guys are running around on the telly with these kind of singlets, kicking a funny shaped ball, and I had no idea what the rules were. But every weekend, and there was people just swarming the streets and wearing the red, white, and black, and heading down the road. And one day I ended up just following the crowd and getting to Moorabbin and followed Plugger and Stewie Lowe and Spud and all those, Nicky Winmer. And Dad and I used to go in the outer and watch the footy, and now I became a pretty avid Saints supporter, and obviously then moved on to the likes of Nick Rewald and Lenny Hayes and Nicky Dowell and all those sort of guys that got so close, but yet so far. And then obviously following the new crop at the moment.
So coming from overseas and then discovering the game, and so as you're saying, watching on TV to begin with, then going to it live and seeing them live. What struck you most? Maybe the speed of the game, the size of the players, what was the biggest thing to hit you?
Oh, look, I was always into basketball as a kid as well, and a bit of volleyball, and obviously non-contact sports, and just seeing the likes of Plugger just running through people in the forward line, and just the ferocity, I think, and just playing under some horrendous conditions really sometimes, so the grounds weren't as good as what they are today, and the rain, hail or shine. So I think I appreciated just the length of the game as well, and the endurance, the athleticism that the players possessed. And the game's developed so much. Even you see what the guys are doing in the air and on the ground, and the skill they have, the vision. I just I'm in admiration of them.
It was obviously the water levels at Moorabbin that drew you into swimming then later, was it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, look, absolutely. I think obviously, the drainage could have been much better down there. But yeah, so I grew up around the Bayside area, swam at King Club in Cheltenham, where the boys actually did a lot of their recovery, and used to pick up their orange peels as well after they came and dropped them all around the ground. But yeah, so I used to watch Rob Harvey, when everyone had the Arvo off, he'd come down to the King Club and, smash 20K on a treadmill just to top up his training, So just that work ethic that he possessed and a lot of the other players had as well was a great thing to watch.
So what was it in the end that I guess
did you
into swimming?
For me, I learned to swim at a very early age, and we moved around the world a lot. And when I came to Australia, for me, it was something that I had to do. It was even before I went to school, and I went to school at uni high. But before we even got there, and so I put my name down, I went to this state swimming centre where the Fed Square is now, and on Batman Avenue, and signed myself up to the Melbourne Vixen Swimming Club. And for me, swimming was something that was, like a passion that I had from a very early age. It was the only thing I was really good at, to be honest. And, as a kid, you tend to gravitate to, the skills that you have. And, yeah, it was something that, I had pretty good endurance. I was pretty explosive, versatile swimmer. And, I kind of hit my straps when I was sort of 13 and started winning a lot of the junior national titles. And at the age of 16, got tapped on the shoulder to move to the AIS in Canberra. And, I had that real quick transition from junior sports to open ranks. And was a bit of a baptism of fire when I sort of got to Canberra, because it's almost like going from, school footy to the AFL. I really had to, learn quickly and learn on the job, and it took me a little while, but the results came eventually.
Was it ever? I mean, you spoke about arriving in Australia when you were 11. As a teenager, you were an Olympian, so there wasn't obviously a huge amount of time in between that. But was there ever a temptation to pick up a footy, or did the people around you sort of say, "Mate, you'll break a leg, you'll rip your shoulder off, that'll be the end of your highly lucrative swimming career"? Was there ever a temptation? Or?
Oh, look, I definitely kicked the footy around at recess and lunchtime, and I played basketball a lot, and I used to get injured, pretty much every season. And my swimming coach, Gene Jackson, he said, "No way, you can't do this anymore. It's it is going to affect your swimming career." But look, I liked sports in general, and I kept on playing. I played a couple house games at Wesley College eventually when I started going there from year 10. But I wasn't, I had very lax joints, and even though I was fairly a big fella, I kind of wasn't very solid at all. So a couple hip and shoulders and I'd be in pieces. So it probably was a wise move that I didn't get on the field.
Your first Olympic experience was Atlanta, 96. I guess a bit of a two-part question, but A, what's it like to put on the green and gold and walk down that, the stadium in an opening ceremony? And B, I guess you were ranked number 1 in the world in the 200 freestyle coming into that games and didn't quite work out. What happened?
Look, I'll start with a good answer. Obviously representing a country at any level, I mean, and then obviously getting to the Olympics is is an amazing honor to start with, but it can also be pretty daunting. And you have that expectation, and so for me it was, I was lucky enough to qualify first, and I had a really great build-up, and I thought that the Olympic Games was going to be pretty straightforward. I'd get to Atlanta and almost collect my gold medal, but things didn't go to plan. I was way over my depth in terms of mental preparation. Physically, I was probably ready, but I didn't handle the occasion at all. I got butterflies. I lost my race strategy. I sort of the occasion got the better of me, as I said. So I definitely learned from that, and I don't know if I would have got the results that I did throughout my career if I didn't have that, unfortunately, that negative experience. And I sort of was lucky enough to fix those mistakes and get on the right track, change a lot of things in my swimming, from my technique, started swimming with straight arms and wearing suits and swimming underwater, etc. But yeah, it's an amazingly nervous and nerve-wracking kind of situation when you're walking out in the last heat and they announce your name as, ranked number one, etc. And that was only really my second or third open meet, and yeah, I definitely dropped the bundle.
They mentioned running into halves, going down and doing all the extra running on the treadmill, that sort of thing. But on the swimming
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
have you seen many of the, I guess, former players or even current players that have been out swimming and thought, hey, they're not too bad, or any has he gone that, okay, swim like a brick, or?
I remember doing like a bit of a down at Frankston when we had the club, the club sort of open days, and I did a couple like a board race with Armitage, and he was really impressive actually. He beat me, to be honest. So, so the boys, I think that, and Nick Rewald was super athletic too, obviously having grown up all around the country, and I think generally they were. Swimming's a different sport. It's a different breed. So anything on land, those guys, I could, obviously see them playing footy and basketball and whatever. But, there was a couple of guys that were okay in the water. It's, probably Armitage was a standout from what I remember.
And the club's partnered with Klim Swim, which we'll talk about shortly. But you spoke about 96 and then how that helped you later on. Obviously, I would imagine then coming to a home Olympics, having that experience behind you, given the pressure of the home environment, would have been really important. But one thing that, to me, sort of sums up a bit of Australian sport is that you let the opposition chirp a little bit beforehand and then you show them the scoreboard afterwards. And one of my favourite memories growing up was the smash them like guitars, the air guitar moment. You came out, I think, broke the world record in the first leg, and then Thorpe brought it home. Can you sort of take us through that, where they were very lippy and then you were able to just turn around and produce what I thought was quite iconic?
Look, I'm so grateful to be able to talk about that event, 21 years on now. And we're basically, I think in that idyllic situation where we were, the underdogs, the Aussies like coming in that position, and the Americans had never lost the event. And I think I know that the real story behind the headline, and Gary Hall's a friend of mine who has, he basically was writing for Sports Illustrated, and he wrote this article about a preview of the Olympic Games, and towards the end of the article, he said the Australian swim team will be the one to beat, and then in sort of tongue in cheek said, but in my mind, I think we'll smash them like guitars. And in true media style, they picked up that last little bit of the interview. And obviously, when we were in the staging camp in Melbourne, it was on the front page when we opened the hotel door. And look, it wasn't something that we used really as motivation. We had enough pressure from just the public and the media, and we wanted to achieve that's something that hasn't been achieved before. But it definitely created that great drama and had that anticipation, had the build up, and they painted Gary to be this kind of this evil kind of a competitor that we had. But definitely brought out the best in us, and we had a strategy of trying to stun the Americans almost. And if we could pull it off, it'd be the only way we could, is by making them overswim their races, throw them off their game. And we were lucky enough to do that. And I had the best swim of my life. To this point, it's still my personal best. And, Ash went in second and Fides, and they kept on sort of just holding back on that first 50 and coming home super strong, just like Thorpe did. Gary Hall caught up over 2 meters on him in the first 50, and Thorpe was with that awesome kick, and in that last 15 meters just got to the wall, 0.12 of a second in front. But it had that, that seesawing battle, and it was the best night I can remember, of my swimming career.
When you are overseas for competitions and that, I guess the timing doesn't work too badly to get up and watch games, being that you get up early and train. So, do you find that you get groups of the swimmers getting out up to watch the games, and do you get any other Saints fans along getting with you, or you send the EDA one there?
Look, Yeah, look, I'm living in Bali most of the time and commuting back and forth to Australia. Obviously now I'm following the Saints a lot more than I was when I was obviously traveling around the world. But we didn't kind of have the technology that there is obviously with the SEN app or the AFL app, so access is a little bit trickier. But my dietitian Louise Burke and I had a couple other team members that were mad Saint supporters. So we would, we would obviously find ways to either, find an Aussie pub somewhere in London, or there's ways of getting on top of it. But Aussies, I think when we travel, we gravitate to those things that we're familiar with, and if it was cricket or footy or whatever, it was always would find ways of streaming it on the computer or whatever. So it was always a good thing to do.
I saw in a previous interview that you did on the Saints website a while back that you said that the Olympic Village in Athens was one of the strangest places that you've been wearing the red, white, and black. Is there any stories or anything that you can tell us about trying to get other athletes or other international athletes trying to get them to watch the footy or get on board the Saints?
I'm just trying to think. Look, I can't really remember other athletes trying to. We definitely were kicking the footy, in every Olympics that we went to, and we definitely got a lot of strange looks, So and trying to, people would sort of either if we kicked wayward and people trying to get the ball back to us, there was definitely a few different techniques, and people would try and join the group. So it was. I'm sure there's enough talented athletes in those Olympic villages that if we spend a few minutes really working with them, they'd be, they'd master that drop punt. But I can't, off the top of my head, mate, I can't think of any. But there was, it's definitely turned a few heads.
Take us through, I guess, as a St Kilda supporter, some of your favourites over the journey, I guess your favourite memories, but your favourite players. I know you've rattled off some superstars that we've seen along the way, but are there any that stand out? And I guess some standout memories. The 2010 grand final, I think, for all of us is a standout memory, even if it didn't go the way we would have liked.
Yeah. Look, I was fortunate enough to live next door to Nick Riewoldt for a couple of years in South Melbourne, and my daughter was obsessed with Nick. She would be on the lookout for him, and he had that, his physique and his blonde hair, and he was just an amazingly, kind human being, and had time for myself and the kids, and so I think when it comes to his, you don't always get, these leaders that are kind at heart, but also have this ferocity and this, this ability to lead a team as well. So I think, and I know his family as well. So I think it's credit to him and his parents. So he was one that I got to know personally. And yeah, he was definitely a role model. And, my son Rocco and my daughter Stella were obsessed with Nick, that's for sure. But for me, when I was, I was part of the Jayco Flyers, which was the cycling group, and spent hours with Spud, So to get to know him, he was not only was one of the funniest people I've ever met, but he was an absolute machine on the bike, and he'd be dropping one-liners and then dropping you off the wheel after he told you that joke, and he was just a freak. So, obviously for me, I was like riding a bike next to my childhood hero because, I'd watched him for many years, and then put on some lycra and riding on the bike with my footy idol. So that was a pretty amazing experience. So I'd probably say those two, and then obviously Plugger as well. So those three would be my my favourite, I reckon.
I was actually going to ask about the kids, whether you've been successful in making sure they're draped in the colours, following in your footsteps. I mean, they not necessarily be swimmers, but as long as they're Saints fans, you got to go in that direction.
Oh, absolutely, and not only just my kids, but my my sister's a Saints fan. My parents obviously as well, and I think having that connection with the guys all the way back from the King Club, you know, I'm trying to get my nephews across, but it's really hard. They're Pie supporters, but definitely for us, even living in Bali, you know, we go down to Finn's club and we watch the footy and yeah, I won't let my kids barrack for any other team.
So we're on the eve of the Olympics in Tokyo, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess one of the topical, trending conversation at the moment is about the athletes' village and what life is like in the athletes' village. As someone who's been in a few of them, what's your take on the cardboard beds and the accommodations?
Look, there's always it definitely proves that, you know, the life in the Olympic Village, it's not glamorous, and it's not, you know, it's really the bare necessities that you need. And, you know, most of the time you just need a comfy bed, good sort of access to food, and quiet, I think, you know, quiet environment. And look, you know, I saw a picture of a gymnast doing some flips on it and jumping up and down, so that they seem to be sturdy, so they'll probably they'll be durable enough for everything. But yeah, I think, you know, it just proves that you know, I got used to. I lived in a dormitory environment at the IS, and I think when it comes to competing, everyone's in that same boat, living in the village, and has same access to food and the same sort of environment. So I think it's yeah, I think it looks amazing, very orderly, and a little bit almost sterile to a degree. But being Japan, I kind of expected that. So, but I love about the Olympics is that, you know, every country makes that same kind of plain almost area their own, and you can see the Aussie sort of precinct is, you know, it's got the Aussie flag draped all over it, bunch of kangaroos and the green and gold everywhere. So I think it comes down to, you know, each country to decorate that's the Aussie square, or, you know, your rooms, and make it homely as much as you can. But it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple setup, and I wouldn't expected anything else, to be honest.
Now, Australians love the water, and we know the extreme importance of learning to swim, be it basic survival for young kids, or whether they grow up to be, say, a missile in the water like you were. But Klim Swim, can you sort of take us through the establishment of that, and also the partnership with the club and the support they've given you? But obviously we know how important that is, but a little bit about the operation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started or not just myself, but the whole family, my father and my mum, and also recently my sister joined the team, where we actually launched back in 1999. So we grew to 5 swim schools at one point. So it's been going for quite some time, but I always had the passion of water safety and learn to swim. And I guess being a swimmer myself for so many years, it's knowledge that I've been able to pass on to the future of the sport, and just it's a skill for life for anybody that wants to partake in it, not only from a physical development point of view, social. So yeah, I'm really sort of excited that this year we're in the middle of just finalising some talks with the club and establishing a Klim Swim Centre within Moorabbin, and also Seaford, and providing community programs, learn to swim, and some other health and wellness sort of programs for the surrounding area. So really excited that hopefully we can kick that off next year. But so water safety and learn to swim has been a big passion for the entire Klim family, and hopefully we can do a good job for the club as well. So I encourage all the members to get down there, and if you're in the vicinity, give it a try.
Just to tag a little bit onto the back of Nick's question just before, I saw a photo of Aaron Baines. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but standing up in the bathroom, and he actually had to turn his head sideways to fit into the room. Do you find yourself being quite tall as well, that you had anywhere like that you sort of felt like, I don't feel like I'm in the right place here?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of the time is probably not my height, but my width. I used to struggle a lot with travel for the swimmers was generally, when we were first young, like let's say in our teens and you always want to sit next to, let's say I wanted to sit next to Hackey and Thorpe and the three sort of widest blokes on the team, and you're flying from Melbourne to the UK, and by the end you're sort of all just spilling out all over each other. So look, for me, the thing that I struggled with was the mess that the guys would make. So I was a bit of an OCD kind of guy. So, cleaning up after them was almost my daily ritual. And just sharing some of the loo with the guys in the morning can become a little bit, as you said, showers, and it's not ideal. So those are the things that I definitely don't miss about that.
What's more of a roller coaster, Michael Klim's swimming career or Michael Klim's St Kilda fandom? And did you ever kind of find yourself needing to chat to guys like Nick Riewoldt about the ups and downs of that kind of life?
Look, I think I felt that as an athlete, my life was very kind of simplistic, to be honest. I had I started getting some injuries after around sort of the age of 25 or so, but up to that point, I had a pretty sort of steady career. And unfortunately, I did have some of those sort of, derail maybe a little bit at the beginning, but I was able to get back on track. But whereas, I think emotionally, it's probably being a Saints supporter is much harder. You're sort of on the sideline, you can't do much about it. You lose your voice, etc. But I think, I have been down the club a few times, and previously when Nick was playing, and just sharing I think it's in any sport, it's just that ability to persevere and push through any adversity. So, and it's that relentless nature of, and the guys in the club probably know best, playing 20 odd games and, having to come back week after week. Whereas, we had a good sort of rest between each meet. And unfortunately, you don't have that much time. You have a long break between drinks when you can redeem yourself. But whereas in AFL, I think you got a week where you can, make up for even a loss or a bad performance. So unfortunately, we have to grind it out for months sometimes, or years, to try and make up for it. So, but the psychology is overall, for me, I think in any sport is the same, where you've got that drive, and no matter what it is, if it's sacrifice or choices you have to make to get there. And then just putting in the effort and hard work. So it doesn't matter what you're chasing. I think the attitude's the same.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, it's a busy time ahead, obviously, for the next couple of weeks. And I think one thing we can say is that all of the athletes, I know not everyone can march in the opening ceremony because of COVID, but of all of the athletes that are at the Olympics tomorrow, if you could offer them your career, I reckon every single one of them would take what you've obviously been able to achieve. So congratulations on that journey, and good luck over the next couple of weeks, and go Saints as well.
Yeah, go Saints, and thanks for having me, guys. And hopefully we can grab a few gold in the next couple of weeks.
Michael Klim there won 7 gold medals across the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, and won 17 medals in all across both of those competitions. 2 gold medals at the Sydney Olympics in the 4x100 and the 4x200 relay events there, and of course a stack of medals at Pan Pacs and World Championships. We look to West Coast, and I guess this is the life of St Kilda supporters. It's a fairly gloomy outlook when you lose Rowan Marshall, who's extremely important. And I was rattling it off on social media, the list of players that are unavailable. Now, a lot of these guys are in our best 22. Some of them are not, but they're probably in our best 26 or 27, and they're relevant because you'd be picking them now because the other guys are unavailable. So you've got to go further down the list. But the players that are unavailable for selection for injury or COVID are Marshall, Gresham, Geary, McKenzie, Higgins, Clark, Hanbury, Wood, Carlisle, Highmore, Patton, Battle, Joyce and McKernan. So clearly best 22 out of that is Marshall, Gresham, Geary, Higgins, Clark, Hanbury, Patton. And then on the edge of the best 22 would be guys like McKenzie, Wood, Battle, Highmore. And then you got Joyce, McKernan, Carlisle, I guess, that are providing depth options for you. So it hurts, but in saying that, look, the West Coast Eagles, who have been decimated by injuries all year except this week, I think they're missing Redden and maybe Barras, but they're in pretty reasonable nick. They have been flighty, and particularly at home this year, and such is the nature of St Kilda supporters, H, that despite saying all of that, we sit there and think if we can produce one of our greatest wins of all time, which it will be, then we might end the round in the 8 and still be alive again. So we'll roll up our sleeves and on Saturday go, why the hell not?
Yeah, well, West Coast have looked a bit, I guess, form-wise, that hasn't been great. So they're not unbeatable. That's one way to look at it. Go, they haven't gelled well this year for some reason. There's been something that just hasn't worked from even when they've had the majority of their stars there. They just haven't looked like the West Coast we know. So you saw just a few weeks ago, North Melbourne go over there and beat them. That shouldn't happen. No matter who they're missing. That's the sort of game that you sort of go, hey, if they can do that, we're every chance to do it. It's chance for a few of their players who are fringe players, as you're saying, to get out there, basically say, hey, I should be in this team and hold a spot. While all these players, we're possibly thinking, there could be 4, 5, 6, 7 players coming back next week. So
should get Marshall, should get Higgins, who didn't go to Perth, so was never going to play, unfortunately. Should get Clark, I think. And then
Highmore's possible.
Yeah, Highmore's possible, and then maybe Hanbury, depending on where he's at fitness-wise. Obviously, Shandy haven't been able to play, which hurts. But
yeah, so basically these players, if they want to hold their spot, they've got to go out there and play for it. So it's not the worst position to ever be in. You have these injuries, and you send a team out there and say to them, if you want to hold your spot, you get out there and you play for the team, and you do absolutely everything to keep your position in the team. So it's the sort of game that you go, hey, we could turn up and really play some good football here. But it's not something that scares us too much. We've gone over there in the last few years and actually been so close to beating them. We've had terrible teams and gone over there and almost beaten them.
Our losing margins in Perth in our last 3 games against West Coast and Fremantle have been 13 points, 5 points, and 20 points. So, and then 19 before that. So, it
doesn't scare us all that much.
Yeah.
But it is the opportunity to say we're still in this, and that's how they got to go out there and play the game. And if they want to keep going, basically, it's as simple as that.
And they've got to look at it adversity-wise, Nick, in the sense that we should have beaten Port. We didn't, which means we have to beat West Coast, and then the guts get dripped out of our team. So it's a case of, all right, well, you've still got to get the job done. That equation doesn't change.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we spoke about it last week. We knew that we either had to beat Port or West Coast, really, to be a really good shot at finals. And we lost our shit last week, no better term. But this week we've got a chance at redemption, and we spoke to Michael Klim earlier about that shot at redemption, and one of the things that he was saying is that international swimmers at that level, it might be months, if not years, before you get another shot at redemption. These guys get a shot the next week, and that would have been drilled into them, I'm sure, all week this week, saying that you guys lost it last week. You've got another shot this week to kind of win it back and get that loss back, because we should have won last week. I think everything equal, all the stats were kind of measured up. It was, we beat ourselves, like we spoke about earlier, and we lost that game. Port didn't beat us. We lost that game. This is our shot. This is our shot at redemption. And, you turn up and you give 125%, then we're a real chance of this, because West Coast in Perth this season are not, West Coast in Perth historically. There are some real concerns about things that they do that we're not very good at. They're second in the league for hit-outs to advantage, I think, or first in the league for hit-outs to advantage. They very rarely give the ball up. They've got a big ground to play at. They kick the ball a lot, and they don't give the ball up. They're second last for clangers and turnovers, so they hold on to the ball really well. So when we have the ball, we have to make it count. And when they give it back to us, when we win it back, we've got to make that count. But this is, again, like we spoke about last week, this is a really winnable game, and historically we play pretty well in Perth. no matter what stadium it's at, whether it's Subi, whether it's the Wacker, whether it's Optus, it doesn't, we play pretty well over there, and we tend to turn up and we have a crack. And if we do that again, then we're a shot. But we've got to do that. And we've got to turn up. We've got to play 4 full quarters. We've got to crack in, and we've got to take our opportunities. It's the thing we've spoken about all year. We've got to take opportunities. We've got to kick goals. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, we can't butcher the ball inside or forward of centre like we did last week or like we've done so much this season. It's got to be efficient. And I mean, North, as you say, North beat them. The Bulldogs flogged them. Essendon beat them over there as well. Richmond had them on toast, and they obviously rattled over the top of them. They beat the Gold Coast by 20. They beat Collingwood by 20. They haven't dominated at home by any means. Clearly, they're healthier, and they've got exactly the same prize on the line as we do. But look, you never know. We go over there. It'd be nice. We haven't won a game at the stadium, but we got pretty close, obviously, each time we play there. So it'd be nice to chalk that off and beat West Coast twice in a season, which would be a remarkable thing to do if you don't end up making the 8, if you beat them twice in the season. But we'll find out what happens. But without jinxing it, I guess bringing both worlds together, we spoke to Michael Klim about the Olympics. Now, when you listen to this podcast, the match will be over, but at half-time, the Ollie Roos lead Argentina 1-0 at the Olympics. So if they can score and lead a South American powerhouse, then why not? That's the thing about sport. You're always a chance. So hopefully they can go out there and produce something special and keep our season alive. But plenty of guys are going to have to play very good games. I guess the bewildering part, I'll just get your thoughts on it, H, is despite all of those injuries, and Matthew Ellison is an emergency, Jack Bytel still omitted.
Yeah, that's quite confusing. Unless there's still some niggling doubt about him, I guess. Then yeah,
you don't want to lose him though. That's the worry.
Yeah, I don't understand. We said 5-6 weeks ago he should never be dropped. I mean, even earlier than that, I guess. But yeah, it is confusing that he isn't playing unless he's not 100%. Because at his age, you don't play someone not 100% anyway. So yeah, it is an interesting one to wonder what's going on there. Unless he can't actually break into the team, but even then, I'd still think he should be on the bench minimum.
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, you got to be careful. You don't want to lose a player just through them being disgruntled, or there's no reason to suggest that's the case. But yeah, you just got to be careful in those sorts of situations. But fingers crossed. So we've got the Blues next week, hopefully with a few guys back. Who knows what the fixture looks like, but it's still Perth. We'll go over there and we'll give it a crack and we'll see how we go. But go Saints.